First and foremost, the focus is on our next opponent, as always, which is Syracuse. But because of the history of these two programs, naturally, certain games on your schedule have more significance, are more meaningful. And so the group is looking forward to the challenge of playing Syracuse in the Dome.
You've run into them a little bit in terms of when you are in recruiting, that it's down to you guys and them and
Rashid, yeah.
Yeah. So, is the rivalry thing, is it not just players, is it coaches too?
Interesting. I think, it's, I wouldn't say that with Syracuse it's more or less than other elite programs that we compete against. And I think there's different types of rivalries. Local rivalries, for instance, right across the river. Old, Big East rivalries like, Syracuse and Georgetown. So, I think it's not as though when we recruit, we do anything differently in our approach when we're, vying for a prospect, along with Syracuse. I think, we're mindful that Syracuse is also in the mix, but really our style of recruiting is more to amplify all the strengths of St. John's, more than to talk about Syracuse. That would be the same when we're going against UCLA or Kentucky or any other programs. More, let's amplify what St. John's brings to the table, the strengths of this situation for a particular prospect.
Do you think beating them today would change the landscape in recruiting in any way, shape, or form?
But I think it's more that it's broader. I think kids are making decisions on what schools to attend for broader reasons than a particular, win or loss. But it never hurts. It can only help to have success on the court, because that further, fuels the cause and builds the argument for, coming to a particular school. So I think, success plays a part, and yet, as you know, we signed the number 3 class in the country after a decade of basketball where we really struggled. And actually our best recruiting class came after a decade of basketball where the results were not what we wanted. And we haven't, we've recruited well since then. That's actually, as we had more success, that doesn't necessarily guarantee the same level of recruiting. I think, and I'm pleased with where our recruiting's been over the last 5 years, but I think it's more like, I think Rashid looked at the opportunity to come here and be a point guard, and play in New York and be close enough to home, but also be able to, play in the Garden, in the Big East, and with the style of play that it's a good fit for his particular talents. So I think every recruit is motivated to choose a particular school for different reasons. To this point, I look back at my career, I don't think, beating the rival when I was at UCLA, beating USC consistently, I don't think determined the type of classes we signed. I think it was broader than that.
In terms of the way that you guys in Syracuse compare, I don't think anyone's gonna argue that the guys that you play at guard positions are, you know, in their own way can match up with nearly anyone else. Do you think that Pointer and Obekpa are, can get the better of Christmas and McCullough?
I really like our team without getting into comparisons and who's better, and because those things will play out on the court come Saturday evening, based on the collective results we have as a group and how individual players within that collective effort perform. But I think I like our personnel. I think we match up well with Syracuse, not because we have equal size, but because we present some challenges that they're going to have to prepare for, just like they present, some strengths that we have to be mindful of in preparation for a very high-level basketball game on the road in a tough environment.
In terms of what would be ideal, how big a role do you want Stewart to play in the coming games?
With Miles, at this stage of his career, his value is not only making shots from long distance, but his presence, forces defenses to stretch, which helps our offensive spacing and a number of positive aspects that result from that.
To get that impact, that stretching of another defense, do you think it will already be there based on what other teams have seen from Stewart in watching film of you? Or do you think he has to actually sink a few to get that impact?
No, I think people because now, people have access with Synergy and the exhibition games, as well as the games that have been on television, to know that he shoots the ball extremely well from long range. So I don't think people are going to kind of gamble and say, let's see if he can do this. Let's see if he can make a few. Let's play off him. I'd be really surprised because coaches, first time we saw him shoot the gym, you could tell he's special. He just has a really pretty, smooth shooting stroke. Ball comes off the middle three fingers to create, great backspin. He gets the pronation of the wrist, and he has deep range. So I don't think people are gonna roll the dice and see if you can make it. I hope they do, but I don't think they will.
That first time that you saw him and you noticed that you really liked the form on his shot, that was at Westchester High in LA?
No, we never visited the high school. We never had a visit with his family. It was, so I coached Billy Knight, who was from Westchester High School. As you know, Dwayne Poley from Westchester High School. And actually my last recruit at UCLA was Trevor Ariza. So the relationship with Ed Azam and Coach DeWitt, the assistant coach there, is really what led to this unique situation where I had maybe one phone conversation with Miles, and the coach mentioned that he had applied to school and been accepted, and also spoke. Miles' father came to visit campus just to see the dorms and to see the kind of lay of the land here, and had an opportunity to meet them on campus when he visited unofficially. It wasn't an official visit, just they were coming back to see. So it wasn't until he was actually, here shooting the ball, that I was able to. But I had spoke at length with Coach Zam, Coach DeWitt, and they had told me that he's going to be right there with the other kids that you coach from our program, that he didn't get as much exposure because I think there was an injury at some point and didn't play, and there was one summer or spring that he missed the traditional AAU circuit, and but they said he's as good a prospect as as they had in their program, and so in a sense they were saying you're getting a steal. Remember, coaches asked, look, you're getting a steal. This is a high-level Division I basketball player that's coming to walk on for you. So.
Curious, in this day and age where sadly recruiting battles over our 140 characters a day, you're getting updates on people's lists and who's got an official and who came to whose practice and whatever.
Yeah.
How often does a basketball player end up on a major college team's roster this way with a phone conversation and send your guy along?
It's funny, and maybe it's more because of my Division II roots. I was a Division II basketball player. My brother-in-law's an NAIA coach at Westmont College, married to my sister. And so having played at San Francisco State, which was Division II non-scholarship, and then Chapman University, which was Division II but scholarship, you're aware of kids that, for instance, I had teammates at San Francisco State and Chapman that would have started at UCLA or started at St. John's. John Samuelson is one that comes to mind. As a matter of fact, his daughter, I think, is Connecticut. Maybe the other one's at Stanford, two of his daughters, but so right there. And his wife, Karen, we met playing overseas in England, was a professional basketball player as well, so I have to give her credit for the part in these daughters that are the top players in the country right now. And John was a teammate of mine at Chapman. And there's no doubt, as I moved down my career in coaching, I think back and talk to other teammates about, wow, John would be starting here at UCLA or Sweet 16 or Elite 18, or he'd be starting here at St. John's right now, 6'8", highly skilled, So you're aware that there are players that, Division II and NAI that fly below the radar and either really blossom or develop, or they didn't get that exposure or the hype because they went to a high school that doesn't get as much exposure, or they weren't, they had parents that weren't real big fans of the AAU circuit. And as a result, there's someone that you say, wow, this guy's really good, and even if, like Sean Farm was a kid, Bob Myers, were kids I had at UCLA that walked on, Moose Bailey, Toby Bailey's little brother. I'm trying to think of some of the other kids I had out there that walked on, actually John Crispin, So.
But he's the first one of these that you've had at St. John's.
Yeah, I think so. I have to think back on that. I don't think we've had. Yeah, and Jay Henderson, actually both these kids. Jay's the same. If we played Jay right now, he'd be impressing people as well with his defense. And I just, the dilemma is, you don't with Jay and lean towards redshirting because I also don't want to burn a year given the depth that we have on the perimeter as it is, and really Miles has carved out his role and minutes as a result of his marksmanship from long range. And Jay can shoot the ball well, but he has more defensive prowess, is physically a little more developed than Miles, but can really help us think of the defensive end of the floor as his career.
How would you describe your thinking on the idea of giving Stewart a scholarship?
Well, at the end of the season, we'll evaluate and look at, where, like I always do, where a player is in terms of his development and the contributions he's made to the program, the type of teammate he is, and how he represents our program. And then at that point, if I feel they merit or deserve a scholarship, then we give him, But you got to kind of look at the full body of work, both academically and his contributions to the floor, but both. We have actually a couple of walk-ons that are, that are adding value and represent our program well, and they're doing well in the classroom, and all those factors kind of, come into play, and then you make that decision based on who we're recruiting, who we can bring in to help elevate our program, who we have, who you think deserves to be rewarded it's kind of a big puzzle when you look at the 13 scholarships and your personnel, both the recruits that you have, the needs that you have, and then also the players in your program who you hope to reward. But you can't guarantee those things because you just don't know who may come along that can really help your program. That may want to transfer in, or someone that over the course of this year performs at a high level and then wants to come to St. John's.
Harrison has been a consistent outside threat for you. Green, not as consistently, but he can make three-pointers. Does Stewart give you something that you have wanted for some time, like a second serious outside threat?
Well, yeah, he brings he brings that ability, as we mentioned. I mean, we're saying in different ways, just he forces opponents, to stretch their defenses, to prepare, their schemes and alignments in a different way, because he's a constant threat. If I'm not mistaken, I think Phil was Phil our highest three-point percentage shooter last year? I think he was. Kind of surprised me. I think, was he 40?
Was he?
I think so. It's kind of, I think he might be like the surprising, one of those everyone's like, really? But I think he was the highest, I think 40% or something, three. So it's interesting. No one, you just kind of assume. I fell into that, and I kind of looked at it, was like, wow, maybe I'm wrong. He's the highest.
Yeah, Phil was the highest at 40. No, he was tied with Max.
How many did he take? How many did he make?
30 for 60.
30%.
30 for 75.
30
So he took
75.
about one for two per
Most
game.
three-pointers are the second most next to Harrison.
40%. So it's surprising he shoots it better than Dean.
Yeah.
So that's the nice thing. Now you have three guys out there that can knock down shots.
Yeah, one more, we gotta get out.
With regards to Syracuse, I know you guys have played them tough over the year. Is there any particular new strategy or new plan that you're going to
Not
bring
really.
to?
They've dominated the series. It's no secret they've dominated the series. Going back to the early '90s or something. With an occasional win here or there, but probably Coach Mahoney probably was the last one. I think to have maybe like multiple victories against them in a short period of time. Maybe 3 out of 4 at one point. I was looking through the book the other day. So it's been, more of a one-sided rivalry, if we're going to be honest about the last couple of decades. We're trying to, get to a place where we can win in a consistent manner. That's been the goal from day one. When I took over, easier said than done, but that's the idea, and it's no secret that. Syracuse, one of the kind of gold standard programs in the history of this game, and we feel we're trying to restore the luster, the once proud great program, and there's been 5 of us since Coach Carnesecca retired, so that's what we work like the Dickens for, is to try and get us place where our fans and alumni and former players and coaches could be proud, of what we're doing on an annual basis as a basketball program. And but in terms of this particular game, it's less about what's happened in recent years or in the last 2 decades, and more about trying to put our team in the best possible position to win on Saturday night. So that's been our real focus. We don't have to go for 2 hours, have a great concentration, execute at a high level, and give ourselves an opportunity, in those last 5 minutes to have an opportunity to win.